Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen and welcome to another episode of At Home, where we take you inside a designer's own cherished home. Today we head out to Eastern Long Island to the South Fork, where one of the industry's top American architects celebrating classic modernism today, Lee Mindel, our very own Lee of Shelton Mindel, designs his own stunning waterside retreat. And trust me, this is something special. Hi, Lee.
Hello, Cindy.
How are you?
Pretty good. Nice to see you.
Always so nice to see you too. Yeah. You know, I remember, it was a long time ago now, but I remember when you started building this home. Tell us a little bit about, because I remember the little house before this house.
Well, there was a little Unabomber shack on here, a very humble Unabomber shack on a absolutely magnificent site. And I thought of, gosh, if one could take advantage of the context and explore the different vocabularies on Long Island, what a wonderful opportunity it was. So I remember standing on the crumbling Unabomber shack's roof with a ladder.
Oh, really?
Kind of fantasizing about the views, and it was kind of a scrubby site, but there was water and there was the sunset. And what brought the painters to the Hamptons was the water and the sunset. So I thought, if maybe this could be something, we could build a job without an apparent client.
Right.
So I didn't want to think of myself as a client. I wanted to think of the idea as the client and follow the idea through.
Lee, how hard was that to do, actually?
It was really rough because neighbors are always afraid of people that come in, particularly of architects, into older neighborhoods. And when they see something like a concrete truck coming in, they think you're building a nursing home.
Right.
See construction and scaffolding. They're always afraid that you're going to undermine their neighborhood and their context. Our goal was to do the opposite.
Right, of course.
Irony, and I worked on this with my best friend from Harvard GSD, Reed Morrison. We worked on this. It was such a challenge on the site with the setbacks and the new zoning codes to build something that actually ultimately kind of disappeared, even though it was different than what was here. And the irony is now when you walk across the beach or whatever and you look towards this site, you kind of can't tell what's going on here. And all the old contextual houses look much louder and more prominent than this was. So I was the turtle killer, the person killing the neighborhood, and took an awful lot of grief from everybody. But now people are quite happy because how you have the opportunity in architecture to respect the environment and not build a mausoleum per se, and explore things and views. And in fact, the site is nicer because of the intervention here than if you created something that looked just like the neighbors' buildings.
Right. So you had water to the north, and yet you wanted to bring the light in from the south. So so let us know how you actually came up with the design.
Very, very good question, Cindy, because that's the conundrum when you have views that face north.
Right.
You want to get the south light. How do you deal with that? So we created this kind of origami structure that complied with the street geometry on the front, and it is a concrete structure which is clad in a kind of quilt of contextual wood that relates to all the architecture around it. There are gestures that look like a drawbridge, a refreshment stand peeled off of the facade, a barn door that peels off of the facade. So it was to draw on not only with architectural components, but with the landscape components of the project did the same thing. Create a quilt of the contextualism to celebrate the area we were in. So we took—
I like how you describe it. I won't say it. You just describe how you opened it, how you—
Well, it's kind of like an origami puzzle that opens up and closes, you know, and the building itself breaks open to answer your question of how do you deal with north view and south light. The building is organized on a boardwalk, and everything on the light south side of the boardwalk complies with the street geometry. But then in order to bring the light and to break towards the geometry on the north exposure, the building shifts and breaks open. So everything along the boardwalk on the water side is affected by the current of the water, and it is pulled away from its other volume, creating a kind of crevice and a shift. And in that shift from up above, the south light comes in and informs the house. So the attempt was to try to get the best of all the worlds that were here. The beautiful south light in the front, which is more private because it is the front, and then the shifting geometry along the water and the water views. So the shift in those geometries create beautiful diagonal axes through the house, so you can always see front and back, but it's very private and it looks very small from the front. And as you move towards the side, the hypotenuse of the triangle is always the largest dimension. Those components that you see the shift are on an angle, so they look larger, but they're very discrete because you never see them from the street or the water, only along the boardwalk. So
I like how you describe, I like how you described that the opening, which you're describing as origami, but you described it as opening it like a cracked egg.
it is, it is. And then it's almost if you took the shells of the egg and you shifted them and you got the experience of the void between the two.
Right.
And so this sort of, what separates the two buildings is a glass wedge, actually. The building has a wedgie. So
The building's got a wedgie. There you go. There's some of that Lee humor.
yes, so it's got this glass wedge, and it sparkles all the time, and it feels like a lighthouse in a way. And it respects the water, and the discrete shell of the building is made up of the contextual components of all the neighboring houses and adjoining properties.
You know, it's funny because the front of the house also feels very hidden. I thought when I was looking at pictures that may have been the back of the house at first, like where you got married, right?
The more glassy side is to the view.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the light was achieved in the front was the wedge pops up above everything. So that totally fills in the house with light, but it allows the front to be private and discreet.
Mm-hmm.
So from the street, it's very low key.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I actually loved that, Lee. When I figured out, oh, it's hidden, but it's in the front of the house. I thought that was really special.
well, another issue in these site plans that you have to deal with are enclosures of spaces, outdoor spaces. For example, swimming pools in certain areas, you have to have fences. But fences sometimes look like they're enclosing something. So we created a series of gates areas.
Right.
So no enclosure is the same that surrounds an area. So by creating the stone retaining walls, they look like an entry to something, and then the other closure is done through other means. So around the pool, there are actually 4 types of enclosure that give it the legal enclosure. One is the stone retaining wall. The other is a kind of hidden fence in the planting. The other is a kind of barn meadow indigenous fence, and then the building itself. So you're never aware that you're being enclosed.
Was the pool house built at the same time, Lee?
Yes.
It was. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it feels like it was always meant to be there, and yet it has its own personality at the same time, which I love.
Well, that's an interesting point, because since that's closest to the property line, the intention there was to make a transition from the small contextual architecture. So there's a gable that's fully exposed in the first bay that's quite low. In the second bay is a semi-enclosed gable, same gable. And in the third is a fully enclosed. So that is the transition on that corner where that indigenous building, as it were, has a glass curtain wall that you never see until you're in the back, and that foreshadows all the glass used in the main building.
So we'll talk about the pool house because it's fantastic, but let's get inside the house.
Okay.
How big is it? How many bedroom and baths are there?
I've never counted the square footage here.
An architect who doesn't know the square footage. I love
Well, I
it.
purposely don't because
No.
but it's 3 bedrooms in the main house, and in the pool house there's a bedroom upstairs. Each of them embraces views of the landscape and gets a little surprise when you're in each of those spaces.
Everything is glorious. Let's face it.
And
I can see that there's, you're sweeping up. Is that in the living room?
there's a 2-story corner. I call them multi-useless sitting areas because there's so many places to look at the view. So they're multi-useless, which are the best kind. Wedge is 2-story, and then the sort of dining sitting area has a 2-story corner, and I'm in the living room now, which is more of a 1-story thing. So these spaces are sculpted and hollowed out in different places.
And you also have to, you're connecting 2 sides of the house on the 2nd story, right?
Yeah, there's a bridge that connects the master suite from the other bedrooms, and it's a sculptural component because instead of having railings, it's a kind of glass tunnel that is in the wedge, completely illuminated. And it's even, you can see through the bottom, it's made of subway grating. So it feels transparent.
You know, you sort of found a way. I don't know how you do it, Lee, but every interior almost looks like an art gallery, but it feels warm and inviting at the same time.
We were very conscious here of the need to have a pH balance of warm and cool. The concrete on its own is very gray.
Right.
It can be very cool. And wood on its own can be too hot and warm. So here we used farmed eucalyptus, large architectural expressions of it, the core of the building, and a whole side of kitchen and HVAC area. And so there was an attempt to balance warm and cool. The wood components are large architectural elements, and when they're juxtaposed against the concrete, they create a balance. They don't own a gender, they don't own a hot or a cold, they neutralize each other, and they are better off because of their adjacency. The wood is so happy to be by the concrete, to cool off, and the concrete is so happy to be by the wood to warm up.
And all the glass too.
And the glass. So, and plus we made an attempt to make a very honest building where you can understand exactly how it's constructed. The challenges of that, for example, was in revealing all the slabs, the electrical work had to be set with beer cans in the pouring of the slabs because you have no drop ceiling or anything. And we hit it right 99% of the time. There are a couple of holes there that had to get filled that didn't quite make it. But generally, it was hard, but it was worth it because you understand the full shell, the full enclosure, and the logic of a building. To cover up the logic of a building sometimes is a crime. Buildings often look better when they're framed than when they're completed. So the attempt here was to explore that idea of how to look at the shell of something while also creating finishes and an hierarchy within it.
You have obviously you have such amazing collection of furniture and objects from the 20th century, and so many artists are represented there. That's your calling card in a way. We always expect to be surprised with you, Lee.
When we started the practice, I was so grateful to be trained by great people who actually I was trained by or people that I studied. And at the time, it seemed possible to actually be able to acquire those things very reasonably. And I was determined in this project to explore my own architectural DNA. And the people that all meant something to me, I felt I wanted them to be able to have a conversation together and that I could still be their pupil in that conversation. So they're all represented here in different pieces. Le Corbusier is speaking to Charlotte Perriand, who's speaking to Arne Jacobsen, who's speaking to Gio Ponti.
They're all happy. They're all happy friends playing with Lee, right?
And well, having a conversation with themselves, and I'm their pupil and student. So I'm still in awe of who they are. And I'm almost intimidated that these represent those people who mean so much to me and taught me so much.
You also like have an amazing hand with color, which is very hard to do. And you're so brilliant at
I never
that.
think of pop of color. It's one of my pet peeve sayings. I just,
Really?
I, I call them tableau jobs, okay?
Okay.
Because there are kind of relationships that objects form with each other in the dialogue. And if you listen to the object and you look at the context, something comes out of that conversation. For example, in this site, the grasses are all chartreuse and the leaves can turn orange and there are woods everywhere. Now, if I duck to the side, you'll see that in this room, that is expressed in the wood ceramics. They're on the back console there.
I see them. I see them.
So the grass is over here. They look like the grass is coming up. So when you're inside and you're looking at these pops of color, they're not really pops of color. They're the nature that's happening in the site. So you're starting to relate them to the context that's here, and they don't seem alien. They seem like they're having a relationship not only with themselves, but with what's going on outside. And so that way, nothing really seems alien here as an attempt to do so. I mean, I've probably failed many times, but you kind of look outside and you look inside yourself, and then things start to happen by feeling deeply about what you're doing. And that's a hard thing to express to anybody, the feelings we have inside and reaching inside yourself to try to find an answer.
And I see that you have a yellow wall in a room that just works. Like you said, it's almost like a language. And
I'm going to tell you why that yellow wall's in there.
okay, tell me. I want to know.
It's the only room deprived of the sunset.
Ah.
And there's a Calder tapestry, straw tapestry, that is the sun, that hangs on the wall of the only room deprived of the sunset. So that's why that's there. The other guest room, which is not deprived of the sunset, has a blue wall.
Mm.
But those are also the colors of the Bauhaus, of Charlotte Perriand, of Le Corbusier, and all the people that taught me so much. And then there's a dematerialization in the house of the color of wood, of driftwood, of sky, of water, of clay, of sand. And those components make up the vocabulary here.
I love that. I love that. And it makes perfect sense. And you can see how much care and consideration for every single thing. Like, that's who you are, Lee, and that's why you're so special. All right, but let's move to the pool house, which is very exuberant and fun, still edited and restrained, and there is a different kind of color. What were you trying to say there? Actually, same color, but in a different way.
Well, I was again being trained sort of the Bauhaus and through Mondrian and the Albers disciples. I was also thinking of when a swimming pool was built and we were able to acquire the Tony Rosenthal cube, that pool toys are always bright colors.
Yeah.
So in tandem with the Bauhaus, in tandem with pool toys, the pool house becomes a pool toy. And all the shapes and things in there are a dolphin shape. They're amorphic, they're of the water. And that, again, that relationship of the things outside the blue water and the sculpture and the things inside relate to each other. But they're appropriate there because that's not the bay side. It's the pool side, which has an oblique view of the bay, but it's very different. I wouldn't want to distract from Peconic Bay, but at the pool, which is a little more discreet, you could then create relationships of inside and out that belong to that part of the project.
Hmm. And yet when you go up to the bedroom, it's very quiet. It's very serene.
Well, the intention there was like you were climbing the maple tree outside.
I love that.
Maple in there, the ceiling, the walls, the floor, and you feel like you're in a treehouse up there, up in the eaves, and with an overlook and all you see are trees and water when you look out of there. So it feels very cozy up there, very quiet.
And that house and the pool house is closer to the street, right? And the vernacular
Yes.
is more. I don't want to say more farm, more modern farm. How would you describe that?
It leans into cottage. It has latent cottage tendencies.
Right, exactly.
But then it transitions later as we move down the site by the water into the two-story glass, which foreshadows the glass in the wedge along the boardwalk.
Perfectly said. Now I'm afraid to say anything. You know, I love the aerial shot of the whole setup. The angles are so delicate and so beautiful, and then the water beyond. It's really something. I mean, don't you want to show everybody from above?
Well, I have to say, I got a drone for my birthday. That was the maiden voyage, and then I crashed it 5 minutes later. The drone's not working so well, but we got that footage out of it. We had to have a tree climber come up and get that thing to get the film out of it. But it is beautiful from above. I was very happy to see from the air, it looked like the diagram we drew initially. That was perhaps one of the most gratifying things, that you start with a bubble diagram.
Right.
And then 10 years later, you end with a bubble diagram. That was rewarding. When we worked with the RF landscape, one could say, how could you compete with a water view? You know, a water view is special, but
Right.
There's so many views out here that are beautiful. And what are those? If you were to kind of make a quilt of the architecture of the landscape as we did with the architecture, one could say, well, they're the beautiful horse fields here. There are beautiful meadows. There are wonderful hedges. There's wonderful lawn. There's water, and there are grasses. So what were the appropriate places to incorporate that thing? So the building is surrounded by the collage of the landscapes, just as the building itself is a collage of the context. So to the water side, you know, a lot of people think they have to rip up everything to get a water view. That's what's destroyed our shoreline. So we actually, in working with the DEC, planted all these grasses and all the indigenous things. So in the rear of the house, it almost looks like the tide of the water comes right up to the back terrace, as it were. So those grasses are 4 and 5 feet high. There are 3 types. There's fescue. And so whatever season it is, they turn a color. Now they're chartreuse. They will go purple, then they will go beige. They're just beautiful no matter what season. And when the wind blows and the rain is on them, it's mesmerizing to hear that and watch that beautiful, beautiful movement.
Definitely. And so Lee, tell us what this compound, what does it mean to you? When you were telling me that you create spaces that that calm people. You're a very energetic guy. What's it like when you get out there?
Well, I'm really an employee of the place, because to keep it right, you know, you want to make sure it's always okay. But I have to say, particularly during COVID, which has been challenging for all of us, I'm so grateful and so appreciative of this, which I had taken for granted and was working in so many far off places that I could never get here to the point that I am now. So to be able to see the seasons change, we felt like an infiltration of the movie The Birds with Tippi Hedren.
Right.
On the dock that goes out, we had both eagles and all kinds of ospreys and ducks and stuff, and they used the dock as a forensics kind of mortuary table. So they come in the morning and they bring all their roadkill there. Blue jays and all this stuff, because people backing off of the environment has also opened it up, and clams and crabs. So I have a great appreciation. I'm looking out the window now, and I'm watching the maple tree in the back, the shadow against the solar veil. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. And yesterday, I was just looking up and watching the movement of nature, and it's made me more conscious of that. And I'm so grateful for that, because we
is there a favorite room or a favorite spot in the house that you always gravitate towards?
I discover a new favorite place almost every day. Like right now, I never sit in here, but I want it to be proper for you. So now this is
fantastic
a place because it's my favorite place with you.
Right.
So it depends who you're with to have your favorite place. It's never on my own. It's sharing it with somebody and finding something about it. And when people come to visit, letting them find a place that they like, and then I rediscover it through their eyes. And that's a lot of fun.
I bet everyone wants to stay at the pool house in the guest tree house room, right?
We've had people take the master bedroom too. People have taken everything.
Oh my God, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Lee?
Well, if they want to take the master, then my new favorite place is the pool house.
Right.
Forced to go there, and you have a new experience. I've slept in every room, not with every person, but I've slept in every room.
I don't want to know about this. I don't want to know about this.
But I've enjoyed the experience of everyone. I mean, one of the bedrooms is all Le Corbusier's dorm furniture, and the room is kind of divided into two places. So I love that. It has the blackboards from the school he designed, and another room has Perry Ann things in it, and the master bedroom has a suite of Clint furniture, the Scandinavian.
Love that. Love that.
Most master bedrooms don't have a piano, but there's another library space adjunct to it. So there's a piano that I bang on occasion. So each of these at different times of the year, when it snows, some places look better. The fireplace looks better when it's snowing, you know. But
and the most beautiful experience, can I say, is that you got married. You just recently got married there.
Yes, in the middle of a biblical rainstorm, when the skies cleared for the ceremony, and then it started to rain right after, and then the most beautiful sunset ever. It was a really wonderful experience, and we had a very limited group of people, and we did the 6 foot on center spacing upper Toya chairs, which was very nice.
Well, that's so beautiful, Lee. Thank you for sharing that. Blessings to you and Jose and all the love in the world. And this is a house that is your house, your forever house, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I used to feel too much like an employee, and now I feel like I'm a resident.
Yeah.
Because COVID has allowed me to make the transition.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's magical. For all these years, to have this time together to talk about it. Next time we're going to tour, it's going to be together, but this is as best as we can do for now.
I also want to thank you for the support you've given this house. It meant so much to me. I can't tell you the acknowledgement and the interest in it.
Are you kidding? I want to share it with everybody.
So
and watch out, you're going to have a lot of people going, oh, I was just in the neighborhood.
Well, when COVID is over, let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, big hug, love and blessings. Take care.
So much.
Bye, everybody.
Good to see you.
See you at the next At Home.
That's right.
Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design. Today, you're in for a treat because we are traveling to charming, historic Rhinebeck, nestled in New York's scenic Hudson Valley. And lucky for us, we're getting a private tour of the home and the just finished studio building of my very dear friend and Hall of Famer, Calvin Tsao, one half of the internationally recognized firm at Tsao & McCowan, the other half is Zach. And wait until you see there are treasures, stories, and beauty at every turn, thanks to the curated eye of this very special architect. Hi, Calvin.
Hi, Cindy.
How are you?
I'm really nice and happy to see you, actually.
I'm so happy to see you, too. And really to share this with everybody. This is kind of a long story, right?
Yeah, 1997 is when we bought the property at 85 acres of orchard and forests, and we did it in support of scenic Hudson to ensure that there's no overdevelopment in this area.
Calvin, I kind of remember that the early idea was we have all this land and we're going to build something.
Exactly. But, you know, times are changing so fast. What we learned that we need to put our design efforts into other places rather than, you know, spanking new, never seen before stuff. And we're really now much more interested in preservation and restoration and adaptive reuse. And so the first thing we did here was, in fact, taking a dilapidated gatehouse that had been moved from across the street. It's the only structure on the site, and we fixed it up. And this is now a 800 square foot tiny cottage, and we lived in it for oh my God, 18 years, I think, before we embarked on adding some studios. And I can't say that we were prescient, but it really lucked out because with the pandemic, we actually now have something to use to work out of, because this tiny cottage, as charming as it is, has no space. Our living space is just 8.5 feet by 9.5 feet.
I want to back everybody up a little bit because Calvin and Zach, or Tsao and McCowan, again, internationally recognized, but they also have a pretty big apartment in New York City, right, Calvin? That is in every design book about New York City. You will see this gorgeous apartment. It's like a sculpture. It's, you know, if you ask any design editor what's their favorite apartment in New York, for sure this one comes up over and over again. So it's kind of interesting, right? That then you picked this, you know, jewel of a house. Look, it was on big property, but this jewel of a house, and you stayed in this jewel of a house.
Yeah, I guess, you know, the thing is, we're not architecture or design virtuosos, you know, we, in a way. I mean, we don't like to flex muscles just because we could. And we'd like to work with what we've got. And this is what we got. We got 85 acres and this tiny little stone house. The original stone house, which is even smaller, was a gatehouse for the estate across the street. And it's dated 1875, I think. Yeah. And then in the 50s, they moved this gatehouse to this current site, and then added a kitchen, a 50s kind of addition, and a mudroom. And when we got it, it was practically falling down, and we shored it up, and then we added a screen porch behind it. And that's the only thing we added because we really like to be outside,
right,
away from mosquitoes and other bugs. And it was the best thing, you know, is to preserve what is there rather than kind of glom on things.
Even though you bought the property because you love the land, this is a beautiful, you know, precious house, right? You did kind of fall in love with the house, right?
Oh, we did. When we came in, that there was no floor, and it had been burnt down a little bit, and so we really had to restore it. We saw the bones of it, and it's just lovely. Very simple, clean, at the cusp of neoclassicism and Victorianism, so it's got a little bit of both of those characters, and very gingerbready.
Yeah, very gingerbread. Is it so tell me the floor plan. Is there 1 or 2 bedrooms upstairs?
There are 2 bedrooms that we made from the attic, and the ceiling height up there at its highest is 6 feet 8 inches. Wow. And it goes down to 4 feet. So you really literally crawl up there and go to bed.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so this is what I want you to add it on the porch. Now, do you actually come in to the house through the back or the front of the house?
Okay, so I mean, we really contemporized it because the front of the house is very pretty, but you come through the you can't really get to it very easily at this point because the house was moved. So it made no sense to the topography. But the back door to the kitchen door made perfect sense. So we actually made the kitchen door, and which made sense anyway to us because we usually go out, go to the grocery stores or whatever, and come home and dump all our groceries right there, rather than trudge it all the way through the house.
Yeah, so you enter the back door, and you're immediately welcomed by the beginning of what will be many, many, many precious vignettes, right? So that one, right, that you like, that you just fall in love with. You want to walk. This should be a store.
Yeah, it could be a store. You could come in and shop the house. But anyway, I think the private place is actually the mudroom. It's the room that you come in first.
Right.
And then you go right and you go into the kitchen, you go left, you go into the screen porch. And it's painted my favorite kind of weird green. It's actually a historical color from the turn of the century. Very English. It's
whose paint is that?
It's Farrell and Ball.
Farrell and Ball. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're like kind of hit right away also, right, with this very sophisticated sense of these like kind of off colors, right?
Right. But then we kept all the old parts fairly clean. We painted the floor white, with the walls are white, and we're usually not known as a white architect. But in this case, the house is so small and intimate that actually white became a really nice color. And the really strong colors like that, this bottle green and then this cobalt blue bathroom. So all the little rooms, even little rooms, are very intense colors. And the smaller main rooms are, painted a very, very, very warm white.
And then the exterior is dark. That sort of blends in. It's hard to tell. What is it? Is it a dark charcoal or is it a green gray? What is it?
It's a color we mix up ourselves, and then I had it scanned, and it's actually mimics the tree bark outside. And the idea is to let it just sort of fade into the background.
Okay, I just hope everyone out there just heard that. So they scanned tree bark to help make the color. Is that what you did? Yeah. Okay. This is why I want to share him with you. That's why.
I know, it's crazy. We're running around like this tree bark, no, that tree bark. And we gathered all of the tree bark, put it on the floor, took a photograph of it, took it to the paint shop, and they thought we were crazy. Anyway.
Amazing, amazing. And then I understand that the porch, you can use it year round if you use the stove, right?
Yes. Well, not in deep, not in January and February. Right. That is too cold. But yeah, we did it all the way up to Christmas, and then by March we can use it again. Zach found on the internet, online, is amazing supplier of shakerware, and this is a shaker stove that just really is so well designed, visually and functionally. It puts out heat like you can't believe. Wow,
okay. Afterwards, I need the name of that.
Okay.
But also, this is very representative of your style, which is a very curated taste. And some pieces are known pieces, and some pieces are anonymous, which makes it even more interesting because that means you went and found it.
Yeah, I think we look for things that appeal to us formally, and also something with a history that is compelling. History that has been forgotten, and we want to keep that history alive. Zach loves industrial, like farm equipment and scientific instruments. The Earth's movement. They're geotechnical instruments from like 100 years ago, but they're so beautiful. They used to design things with such care. Even when they're just functional, there are always these flourishes, forms, and details. Beautifully made. It's never, some plastic stuff that you buy today.
And how would you describe your obsessions?
Okay.
Everything else. Everything else.
I'm stuck in my past. I have this idea, I mean, of childhood that I don't know, don't call me Peter Pan, but and so I think stuffed toys and little figures, they say a lot about the way we think of ourselves as a being, as a culture. There's something mystical about it. And I'm not talking about Barbie, but even Barbie, you know, or G.I. Joe. But, you know, I just find things. A lot of them are like vintage sock dolls or things that people made.
A lot of crochet. Yeah, in terms of the toys, there's a lot of crocheting I see.
Yeah, it's really a lot of them are handmade toys, things whittled out of, you know, sticks of wood or sewn or crocheted or knitted. And they still have the hand of someone who made it. And obviously, it's something very dear to that person. And we want to preserve that kind of connection to people. There's a humanity in those objects. So they're not really like stuffed doll, you know, animals or something like that.
Right. No, I mean, when you see them all together, it's always like you've created a little installation. It's almost like little art installations all over the house. All right. So let's go into the living room, for instance. Calvin, did you guys like design the sofa, which looks like it's end to end?
Yeah, because we squeeze a lot of people in to watch like, you know, TV or something. We actually had 7 people squeeze into their watching, you know, old movies after Thanksgiving every year.
Wow.
Somehow.
And there's also this beautiful lamp. Where did you find that?
Yeah, that's actually metal. It's a welded, it's kind of cubic one, right?
Yes, yeah.
The whole thing is metal. Even the lampshade is metal.
Gorgeous.
And it's made by this craft person on Atlantic Avenue. You know, it's close to our office. And I walk down the street and there's this guy welding away. And I go, what is that? And I bought it from him.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. By the way, like for viewers out there, Calvin is sort of like, has sort of my soul. Like we both worked for the Design Trust that has an auction every year, an art auction. Right. And the two of us would go after the art like it was no one's business. And you can see some of his finds around this house as well.
Indeed.
Okay, so let's go. So now it looks like every room also has either shelving or a bookshelf or places where you actually can show off all these beautiful objects. So what about the dining room, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, we actually create all these surfaces so that I could serve dinner, you know, because there's not enough room for a lot of furniture. So we actually found all these things you can hang on the wall. Some of them we made ourselves, but we got inspiration. Actually, the piece right behind me is a vintage, you know, Scandinavian piece. I actually don't remember the maker. Maybe there's no one, but it's beautifully made, and it hangs on a wall. And so when you don't have legs, I can't just think about too many legs in the same space. So that kind of cleans the floor being, you know, to the wall.
It looks like there are beautiful drawers to that, right?
Yeah, lots of little drawers. So we have all our knives and, you know, silverware and napkins and, oh, you name it, it's squeezed in there. It turned out to be a ceramic nut, so I have so many plates, dishes, bowls. I'll never use them all. I don't know about it.
And then I even see that you like tucked in on, you know, a beautiful window seat. That's very you as well, right? That's like a signature Calvin move.
Yes, always a window seat. I just love to stare out the window. So no matter where you are, whether you're in the city or out in the country, because, you know, you're at this kind of place between the safety of inside and the allure of outside, the mystery of outside, you know, what's happening outside. It's something like internal, external. It's a real transition point.
It's beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to kind of crawl up the stairs.
Yeah,
right?
literally, you do.
Right.
It's very steep. Like the risers are 8 inches.
Oh my goodness. But I see there's a beautiful old tub on feet, right?
There's a place in Albany that's a salvage company that sells stuff. We also have bought a wonderful stove from the same place, and we had it restored. And the tub we had to reglaze too because there was like rust and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like new, something easy you buy and they ship. No, we have to go to Albany and lug it back in our back of our station wagon.
Yeah, but that's part of it, right, Calvin?
Yeah, it's in the hunt. What can I say?
Totally in the hunt.
It's not the product. It's the process is just important, I think.
Exactly. I always remember how hard it was to schlep home. Okay, so let's talk about the kitchen because you do a lot of cooking in there, and you really could be a chef, Calvin.
You haven't eaten it yet, but you
well,
have to
it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's like made out of wax or something. No, I do love to cook, and they're pretty tasty.
Yeah. So did you on the sink side?
Yeah.
The counter and the shelving. Did you design all that?
Yeah, the kitchen we pretty much designed. We did find a dentist cabinet to put all our glasses in as a glass front cabinet. But otherwise, all the other furniture, save the stove and cabinet, are custom designed just so that I can actually have the right amount of counter space and storage space.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels like a piece of furniture too. I love how you pulled it away from the walls just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's an opportunity to think about kitchen in a very different way than apartment kitchens.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, you have the old chamber stove, which I had one in my old house, and they're amazing, right?
Amazing. The BTUs are incredible, and you can like roast a chicken in half the time.
I know, it's crazy, right? All right, so I need to know, so what is the favorite dish that you've posted on Instagram that you've cooked so far to date?
Okay, so actually, I've never cooked Chinese because the stir frying is just too much work and messes up everything, especially in an apartment. But now that I'm in a house, I can open all the windows. I have a great hood, and my siblings and I are having a kind of a family Zoom every week, and we came up with the idea of recreating some of the dishes from our childhood, some really weird things. And one of them was something an eccentric aunt used to make, which is pork chop, baked pork chop in cream corn. Actually, it's not even Chinese. What am I saying? But anyway, it's not anything. And it's got mozzarella cheese, and I have to say, it's either because it's from memory, something that we love as a child, I love as a child, or maybe it is really tasty. I have no idea, but it really tastes good to me.
Wow, wow.
And Zach didn't complain.
Okay, so there's a lot of cooking going on, amazing dishes, beautiful. And then you're gonna head outside and go to, are you calling it your office, your studio? What are you calling it?
Yeah, we'll call it this. It was meant as a studio. Now we're working in it as if it was an office. So I guess it's dual purpose. It's good because we actually have very well insulated rooms. So Zach can yell into his Zoom, and I can yell into my Zoom. You know, it's totally fine. And and it's a series of rooms that are connected by little kind of bathrooms. Because
two bathrooms, right? Two bathrooms?
Yeah, it's doubling up as a guest room, guest quarters as well, because we can't have people over here. So So we snuck in a bathroom, but we did it in two portions. One is the commode and the sink, and the other one is the shower and the sink. And because we are limited by the amount of space we can build, because of a promise to Scenic Hudson that will limit our footprint, so there's no corridor between the rooms, and we walk through the rooms via these bathrooms. And also a screen porch in front, so in the summer you can just open your French doors and then connect to each other that way, or go through the bathroom.
But there's also an outside, out of those two rooms is a beautiful, actually built-in kind of sink area with art over it, right? The Tree of Life, it looks like.
Yeah. And also outside we have a patio, if you can believe it, a patio with a built-in bench that looks over the orchard, and we actually still in the process of adding a fire pit. Can you believe it? I can't believe I'm adding a fire pit. It's so, I don't know.
The building is beautiful though, and I love that you have this space in between where you walk, where you're walking under. What is it? It looks like, were there two different trees you're using as part of the building?
Oh yeah, so that connects us to a brand new garage. Because, Zach loves his vintage cars, so he doesn't want to park the cars outside. So he has a 1961 Lincoln Continental that just got restored. So we built a garage and a workplace. So we have a little workbench in there so we can do our projects. And then between that and the studio, there's a little breezeway.
Right,
and
breezeway, yes.
Down 2 tree trunks to support that breezeway. It's a little bit like, Primitive Hut revisited.
I love that. That's so you too. It's so beautiful. And I love that kind of pathway, and you're sort of meandering in between these different buildings now. It's really special. Tell us about the office space too, which, by the way, it also looks like a gallery for all of your collections.
We're busting out with stuff. So it just finds its way wherever, all over the place. I mean, I have a wooden airplane. Don't ask me why.
I love it.
I think I'm going to hang it, but I don't know. I haven't gotten around to it. Well, I mean, Zach is more conventional. He has a desk, and but he also have a daybed / window seat that he can take naps in. I'm just too hyper to even think about naps. So, and in fact, I have a standing desk because I just can't sit down. So you have a standing desk, it's very big, it's like 4 feet by 7 feet. And so I can really spread out. And, all our drawings are so big anyway. So, right. And also I have a sewing machine
wow.
from my grandmother that I found in a storeroom. So I am going to start learning how to sew.
That's amazing. I keep thinking about that. I don't do it, but I keep thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to sew clothes. I just want to make things using the sewing machine.
Right, exactly.
Watch out, some weird shit coming up.
a lot of new toys coming up.
New toys.
So, Calvin, tell us of a couple of your favorite, like a favorite spot in the house and maybe a favorite vignette.
Well, as you just intimated, I love window seats. So the window seat is definitely my corner. And I always curl up and looks out onto the main road and the farm stand that's on our property. So I can see comings and going. So it's not the rear window, it's more like the front window. And that's one of my favorite places. But in the studio, I think I really love the space outside. Also, again, looking out onto the orchard. That bench that we designed that's built into the house. So the house, this little building, it looked like, it's very conventional. I mean, it's a shed, basically a shed bar, but it has a little foot in front, like a pad, almost like a sphinx or something. and you can sit on it. And it has a little low stone wall in front of it. And eventually we want to find a kind of nice table so you can actually have drinks or even have dinner out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I have great plans for that space.
Do you ever talk about the fact that you had imagined something quite different and how special this turned out to be?
Yeah, I mean, the one good thing about getting older, you are sometimes getting wiser, not always, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that less is more, and also let life take its course. Inspiration's everywhere. Just don't get fixated on an intellectual idea, I think. Yeah, I mean, you need something but to start something, but it's just a starting point. That's what I've learned over the years, that whatever comes up in the frontal lobe should allow the rear lobe to really come in and do its magic. So it just meaning you have to be sensitive to your elements.
Yeah. And you find beauty in everything, Calvin, and you seem to be able to take something that's often overlooked and create something quite magical from it.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, beauty, what is it, right? I mean, I sometimes think my idea of beauty evolves. Through discovery, you notice things that you've never noticed before, and it moves you somehow. And I think that's what beauty is. It moves you somehow. It stirs up something inside of you and make you question about all kinds of things, you know. And that's why, you know, sometimes beauty can be morbid or beauty can be ethereal. And I must say that, you know, I've never spent so much time in nature as I have over the last few months, which has been a great blessing, even though there are lots of other tragic things going on. But for me, the one blessing is to have this time for introspection and also be exposed to more nature than I ever imagined I would be exposed to. And nature is an amazing wealth of inspiration.
Yeah, looking at the house, I was going to say, I see nature everywhere, not just outside, but in the objects and the beauty and the simple materials, the collections, the nests. I see nature everywhere in this house.
Yes, nests. That's another thing that we collect. It's on walks. Nests and paper wasp nests, which are pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, beauty in this house, beauty in everything that you do, Calvin and Zach, in your mind, you're just a beautiful person, and we're so lucky that you're sharing this wonderful treasure of a house on this incredible property with us today.
So many compliments. I don't even know how to take it.
Oh, please. Oh, please. I wish I was there so we could be like touching all the things.
I know.
You know?
Well, when this is over, you have to come up and visit.
I know. Okay, when this is over. So in a couple of years from now, I'll see you.
Yeah, right, at this rate.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to come over with face masks either.
I know. No, I don't want to. Thank you, Calvin, with all my heart. I thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're the only person I would want to share this with. Because
well, a few more might be seeing it now, but I appreciate it.
But through your eyes. And,
thank you, Calvin.
I trust you.
Thank you
so much, and I love you so much.
I love you too. Thank you.